ahead and get started. We might have another couple folks join in, but we'll get started for now so we can keep this to an hour and be done by 4. So this is our Montana Legislative Testimony Workshop, specifically focused on House Bill 2, which contains the DNRC budget. Today, Jeff Teaberry and I will be presenting. Also, when it comes specifically to some of the Zoom pieces, Autumn Coleman might chime in and add a bit of detail since she has been dealing a lot with Zoom and can, give us lots of good tips. So, and if you're, as we're going, feel free to type questions into the chat if need be. And we can take questions as we're going, and we can also take questions at the end. So just feel free to chime in. Okay. It'll let me go to the next slide. There we go. So just a quick overview of the checklist for thinking about your testimony. First of all, know the bill text, and I'll show you shortly how to look up those bills, check the hearing schedule in terms of date, time, and room, look up the subcommittee members. Sometimes that can be really helpful, especially if they're one of your local legislators. Write out your testimony. Even if you're doing testimony in person or over Zoom, it can be really helpful to have a script to look at. And then if you have any handouts, make sure that you are either sending those to the committee ahead of time or that you have them ready to hand out in person. So really quick, I'm going to do a switch over to the ledge.mt.gov so I can show you all a couple of things. So to watch and listen to any of the hearings, this is not to testify, but just if you want to watch what's going on, you go up here to the watch and listen button, you go to the streaming schedule. These are all the ones in progress, so if we click into this, it'll actually take us right to the hearing. And then you can also go over here and look at it's a short agenda, it's a concise version, but you can also look at the agenda. So there's that piece, and you can also see the upcoming ones. Okay. Back to this home page. Got to give it a chance to load, I guess. Okay, so then the next thing that I mentioned was the bill search. So again, from this home page, you go over here to bill search, look up bills. If you know the number, for example, House Bill 2, you can just type it in there and find it, and it'll tell you, where it's at. Okay, so we know that there's, hearings coming up. And then you can also go and look at the bill text, which is really helpful. So another cool thing is you can look for bills by a certain legislator. So if you say, oh yeah, I remember, Senator Flowers was sponsoring that, you can go and put them in here, or you can look at bills by subject area. So if you wanted to look up, let's say, agriculture bills, you could do that as well. I might actually close that because it's taking ages. So those are 2 of the things that you can do on the website. So next, there are 3 ways to testify, and I'm going to hand that off to Jeff Teaberry.
Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. This is the 3rd one of these we've done, and we're happy to do these for you, and hopefully they're of some value to you. That quick shot that Rebecca showed of what's going on up at the session, it's kind of sad in a way because it was so vibrant and active, but the pandemic now has changed it. So you see maybe 2 or 3 people sitting at the desk in the hearing rooms. Some of the legislators are participating via Zoom, and I know one of our supervisors, Jeff Ryan, showed up the other day at to testify in person, and they were so happy to see him. They kept asking him questions and didn't want him to go. So anyhow, it's a different time, but there are 3 ways to testify now. And And you could kind of do this you could do 1 and 2 in the past, but now we have the option, the third one too. So in person, obviously that's doesn't need any explanations. We're still not, MACD and I think DNRC are not showing up in person. We're going to evaluate it here again shortly to take a look at what's going on out at the Capitol. But some people are going in and testifying, wearing their mask till they get to the podium, and then sometimes they're leaving their mask on, sometimes they're taking it off. So you're welcome to do that. You don't need to do any prep work other than you better know your subject. And if you want to have a written testimony, that's the time you would turn it in. So you would, if you have something written, you ask the chair if you can distribute those or bring them in early and get it to the recording secretary in there. And then, so go back to that one, sorry, please. And the written one, you can do that all on your own too. You don't have to show up in person. You don't have to testify by Zoom. You can just get on the website, as Rebecca showed you, and submit a written testimony. You pick out the committee and the bill, and then you put your testimony in, you hit send, and it's off, and there it goes. And we'll talk about the content of the testimony in a little bit. And then, of course, the other one is you can do the Zoom now or telephone and talk to folks. And that really is not as effective. It's the best we can do at this point for a lot of these. And the legislature has been very kind and considerate in how these things, because there are some this morning, there were technical difficulties getting through, et cetera. So it's working. It's not ideal, but it's kind of the best we can do at this point. So on to the next one, please. So here, when you do testify, you want to keep your remarks brief. And, you know, if you have somebody on your board that likes to expound on topics very long, you may want to get somebody else to testify, even though that person knows lots about it, because you might use that person for the written testimony, so you can get into the detail at that point. But you want to have someone gets up there and the remarks are brief. You know, in the past, sometimes they limit how long people have talked, and they were saying 3 minutes now, but I don't think they stuck to that as much as they said, because people are indeed being brief, because they know, you know, just listening to people's voices is not as effective. Tell your story. You want House Bill 2 we're talking about today. It's coming up next week on Tuesday, and that's when we want districts to come in. And your story is about how DNRC has helped you out and the things they've done for your district. And that can be a short, very short sentence on, they helped us get started with the aquatic invasive species program. And we had, you know, 15 employees this summer, and we think we delivered value for the money, and we'd like to do that again. And we think we're doing a good thing keeping the mussels and the aquatic invasive species out of the state of Montana. And maybe one other example of how they've helped you out. You know, a lot of districts get administrative grants from DNRC to try to bring up the amount of funds are available yearly to, I think it's 34,000, somewhere like that. So I probably should have said this one first. Introduce yourself and your organization. You want to say who you are. I'm from Cascade Conservation District, and I've been on the board for, you know, 10 years, that type of thing. And of course, you want to say if you're a proponent or an opponent. And obviously in House Bill 2, we're proponents for DNRC's bill. And then if you have any handouts, you can submit those electronically, or if you're in person, you can hand deliver those. So that's kind of the different ways to approach it. Next, please. So planning to testify in person, you want to do a little bit of prep work. You know, one of the things DNRC told us is we don't want all 58 people showing up from all 58 conservation districts, because it would just kind of overwhelm the system, and they have to hire extra sergeant at arms to be outside the door, because they only let one person in the room at a time to testify. You can see the podium there in the middle, and you'd be about 6 feet away from that guy there that's drinking his coffee on the left. So you'd be far enough away. But at the same time, out in the hallway, you know, you got to stand away from each other, et cetera, and get ready to go in there. So the things I kind of talked about, know your subject, be precise, and And if you show up in person, you don't have to register. You can just show up. But if you're doing a Zoom testimony, you have to sign up on that website. And if you're submitting written testimony, you have to submit it on that website. And you can't submit it until the bill, when you pull that site up, it'll say what bill you're testifying for. If your bill, House Bill 2 is in there now, so everybody on this platform right now can go in and sign up on House Bill 2 to provide their testimony. So it's open now, and hopefully next day or two you can get something on there. And this is the approach that we need you folks to do. You want to start with good morning or good afternoon. It's just kind of a courtesy thing, and they do spend a lot of time on formality up there, and you have to, because you have 150 people that most of them don't know each other. One time I calculated there are 1 billion words spoken over that 90-day session inside that building, based on just a formula that I pulled off the internet somewhere. And so there's a lot of words going on, and courtesy and politeness is very important up there. So you want to greet people and address them by their title. And members of the committee, for the record, my name is John Smith, and you probably don't have to spell Smith, but certainly I have to spell my name all the time. And if you have a complicated name, you want to spell it, and who you're representing there today. And then I'm here as a proponent for House Bill 2. DNRC has been involved in our district since I can't remember when they started, but they've helped us on a lot of technical things, such as fill in some of those blanks there. We don't want, somebody on the last one of these said, well, give us some speaking points. We don't want to do that, because we want these to be different. If we give speaking points and then 10 districts all use the same speaking point, it just loses, the third one that the legislator looks at, oh, this isn't the same thing that I heard. And then he or she doesn't look at the rest of them. So we want individual things. And then at the end, politeness again. Thank you for your time, and I'll be around for questions you may have. And obviously you want to try to answer questions if they have them. If you don't know the answer, say so. I'm sorry, Senator Jones, I don't really know the answer to that, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And then if you do get questions, you say thank you for the question. Or, sorry, I should do this more in order. Then when you're done, they listen to all the proponents and they listen to the opponents. And I don't know if there'll be opponents for House Bill 2, but I guess there'll be one that we heard about. And then they'll have informational witnesses. Usually that's the agency comes in and talks. I'm here to answer any questions you have about this particular bill. And then, so they go to questions from the committee, and then the committee starts discussing it. And sometimes they discuss it among themselves, but sometimes they'll go to the sponsor of the bill. And sometimes they'll go to, well, Julie Ralston, you got up and said something. I want to ask you a question. And so when you get up, get back on and say, thank you for the question. You say, Mr. Chairman or Mrs. Madam Chairman, and Representative Smith or Senator Jones, because we can have both in this committee. These are combined committees of different groups. The person who asked the question, then you give your response to it. So anyhow, was that 4 slides? I'm not keeping track of them. Okay, are you doing this one? I'm doing this one.
This is your last one.
My last one, okay. Okay, key points on DNRC 2, introduce yourself. We talked about that, and state your proponent. Tell stories from your CD. That third bullet is the most important one. Talk about how the budget, staff, and/or grants have helped you get conservation on the ground, and that we're about customer service. We're taking care of our folks. And we're local government because we're out there across the whole state of Montana and trying to get conservation on the ground. So anyhow, we'll be around we're staying on for questions at the end of our presentation. So thanks everyone.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, so next we have written testimony. So I'm actually going to go to the website and show you how to do this. But we will be sending out these slides afterwards too. So you can always go back and check things, remind yourself how to do things. So If you want to submit written testimony at any point in time, you can just go, again, this is the ledge.mt.gov page, and you go to send a web message to a legislator or committee. And you put in all your information here, and then down here is where you can pick the specific legislator, or again, pick the specific committee. Then you can say which bill it's about, if you're for or against it, and type your message. And that'll go directly to them. This is a really nice one too, because you can send it directly to the committee, which can be really helpful. Okay, so we're just going to go back. So Jeff mentioned testifying virtually via Zoom. So the big thing, I'm going to put this slideshow up just for a minute, is that you will be able to select from the bills that are currently scheduled for hearing for the next 3 days. So if you try and register early, more than 3 days, you might not see your bill, and you have to register by noon the day before. So I'm going to bring up the slideshow again. So again, 3 days to 24 hours. And let me show you how to do that. So it's on this same web page, and you click request to testify remotely or upload your testimony. So I want to testify on House Bill 2. So let's see. I'm actually not seeing the one that it's not. Oh, okay. So you pick the committee, and then you pick the position on the bill. Put your full name. Oh, mine will autofill because I've been doing this, which is nice. Name, email address, phone number, city. You can submit a short written comment here if you want, and you can even attach files. It's not required that you put those things in to be able to submit. And then the big thing is if you want to testify via Zoom, so you could just submit written testimony this way. This is another way to submit written testimony. And they will get it, you know, leading up to the hearing. So it's a good way to make sure they get it. But if you want to testify via Zoom, you go down here and click yes. And then if you're joining over phone or computer, I'm not going to hit submit because I don't want to submit this right now. And I'll probably put something in here when I do submit. But that's kind of a brief overview of that piece. And again, this is a slideshow, so you can get in there 3 days or up to 24 hours before. Usually it's by noon the day before. And you'll get 2 emails. So when you first submit, you'll get an email. Actually, I'm going to go back. You'll get an email that says, you know, we're confirming that you are going to be submitting Zoom testimony, or that you submitted this form. And then you'll get a second invite email the day before the hearing. Usually I think by 5 or 6 p.m. you should get one. So if you don't receive your Zoom link, this is actually directly from the website. You should check your junk folder, and you can also contact the information desk. So again, you should receive it by 5 p.m. the day before. And when you get that Zoom invitation, so that'll come in that second email, you can join from browser or download the desktop application. One big thing is you can go in and actually change your name. So if you don't have your name on your Zoom account, you would go in and say, you know, I put Rebecca Boswell, MACD, but you might also, you know, Jim, for example, Jim Simpson would put Jim Simpson, and he would put either MACD president, or he could put Lake County Conservation District. So you want to put your email and name, mostly name more than email. And then when the presiding officer calls for public comment, you won't have the normal full bar where you can mute and unmute yourself. You'll just have the raise hand function. So you'll raise your hand, and then they'll give you the ability to talk, which is what I did for those of you who joined. I gave you the ability to talk. So they'll do the same thing, and then you can unmute yourself and give comment. So One big thing with the Zoom is to go in and test your audio settings early. This has been a challenge in some of the hearings. Even when folks have tested their audio settings, there have been issues. But you can just go in on your Zoom. You can test it and make sure that your voice is coming through on the mic to make sure you can hear the Zoom. And when you're doing this ahead of time, so you can see, here's the raise hand function that you would have. You don't actually have the ability to speak yet. They can't tell that you're testing your audio or anything because you haven't been given the ability to speak. So you can go in there and test anything you need to. One other thing is if you are having audio problems, you can always switch to phone audio. So it'll give you a number to call in, and then you can use the mic on your phone if that works better than the mic on your computer. And you could also be testifying over the phone if that's what you chose to do on that initial invitation. So here, and when you click yes, it'll ask you if it's phone or Zoom. And then here's what I had mentioned before about raise your hand when it comes up for public comment. So that's where that button will be. And then they'll give you the ability to speak and it'll pop up over here. So one other interesting thing is that sometimes when you raise your hand and join, you'll end up going through what's called the wormhole. I'm stealing that term from Autumn, where basically that will happen if they're giving you not only the ability to speak, but also to turn on your camera. You'll see, that you're going through the wormhole. So, and these are just some of the tools. So again, how you test your speaker, test your mic. And here's that wormhole I was talking about. And we can all go through that at the end if you want, but it's a little scary because it feels like you're getting kicked out of the meeting, but it's just changing your status in the meeting. So, and then again, once you raise your hand and you're given that ability, you will at least have the mute unmute button to speak, and you may have the video if you've gone through the wormhole. So, and it is tricky because not all the committees are the same. So some of them do just give you the ability to speak while some give you video and speaking. So it depends. In terms of just the Zoom testimony, don't panic if there is a delay or tech issues. Again, they're being really patient with folks. There's plenty of technical issues that happen, and everyone just, wants to make sure that folks testifying do get the chance to do that and to have their voice heard. So all you have to do is, if you've had technical issues, just address the chair, make sure, I always start by saying, can you hear me? Try unmuting yourself, all these things. And if there's a delay, just say, thank you for being patient, and dive into your testimony. You don't need to worry about explaining the technical issues because there's plenty, they get it. So don't worry too much about that. So the next piece is, if you are giving phone testimony, it's important to know these two controls. So when they call, if you're calling in and doing everything over the phone, you clicked that option. To raise your hand, if you're just listening, you press *9. And then once they've, given you the ability to speak, you can try pressing *6 to unmute. And you may have to try that once or twice. And again, same thing, if there's a delay, just say thank you for being patient once you get it sorted out, and always ask to make sure that they can hear you before you actually dive into your testimony. So with that, I kind of sped through that, but we can move into our question and answer period. And I guess right now I'm going to ask Autumn if I kind of missed anything, since she's the Zoom expert.
No, you did a great job on the Zoom portion of it. The one thing I was going to say, Rebecca, is if you could show them how to see what time and where the hearings will be. So if you go back to the legislative website, because that's a little tricky sometimes for me. Yeah, there's a couple of different ways to figure out where the hearings are and what time and what room. So yeah, go to that one.
So yeah, I'm gonna go back just so you can see where I clicked that, just view hearing schedule. And from here, you can actually just click submit and it'll basically give you the hearings for the next couple of days.
Right.
So,
And if the other way to get there is if you know your specific bill. So again, if you look up House Bill 2, so there's a bunch of hearings scheduled, and you can see because they're hyperlinked there on the left-hand side. So if you're looking for the DNRC hearing, we are going to be in, yes, natural resources and transportation. And so it'll tell you what date, the hearing room number, and the time. And sometimes hearings get changed. If they know it's going to be a big hearing, they'll move rooms. So it's always a good idea on your way in the building to double check to make sure that it hasn't moved or something like that. Also, if you click on that committee link right there, Rebecca, the joint appropriations, there you go. You can see a detailed schedule of what they have coming up day by day. So, and then you can click on the sponsor, things like that. But then if you scroll down, you guys can see the committee members there as well. Oops, just, yeah, stay there. Scroll down, there you go. So you can see the committee members as well. If you click on their names, it'll take you to their page, and then you can contact them, directly from that page. So definitely get in here and push all the buttons. So.
yeah, thanks, Autumn. That was a pretty critical part. I forgot about the various ways to find the schedule. So I'm glad you're here. So again, you can go to view hearing schedule and pull up just, the next couple of days, or you can look up the specific bill. So with that, I think we can open it up for any questions that folks have. And let me make sure that everyone you should have the ability all to talk. I'm gonna make sure that everyone's been given that ability. There was one person that hadn't, but you should all have the ability to talk. And if you want, I can put you through the wormhole as well. Any questions on content or preparation or anything like that? And I will say that we will be sending out, or I will be sending out these slides as well as some other information on testimony and House Bill 2. So you will have that. And we're also recording this webinar in case, I don't know if you would want to watch it again, or if you know anyone that wasn't able to attend. So.
One other quick note, I apologize, Rebecca. So the way the hearing will go is that the DNRC will, testify on their portion of House Bill 2. They'll give just testimony and explain the programs, and then the committee will, or the committee chairman or chairwoman will then open it up for proponents. And usually they'll pull the people that are in the hallway or in the room. Those folks will speak first, and then they'll go to the Zoom and they'll ask for, proponents via Zoom. Sometimes they might forget. So if they're asking for proponents, you can go ahead and raise your hand and just leave it up until you're called on. That'll signal to the people running the Zoom meeting that you guys want to speak as proponents. Again, they'll do the same thing for opponents. They'll do the same thing, I think, for just general public comment. So essentially, put your hand up, leave it up until they call on you. So if you're testifying via Zoom, if you're in person, you gotta just wait in line. So.
And Autumn, we just got a chat saying that a person already submitted their testimony for House Bill 2. And I wrote back and said, I don't think that's a problem. Do you have, yeah, you agree?
I don't think so at all. I think They accept testimony as long as the bills are open.
Great. Thanks, and thank you for that question. Any other things that folks were wondering about?
I would just, in general, you know, it's kind of an unusual way to talk to people. And I would just point out that the committees I've been on so far, the chairs have been really kind and gentle, if that's the right word, with people that are trying to get through and going back and saying, you know, is Julie still on the line? Because, you know, we can see if we can get through to her now at this point. So once they know that you want to get in there, they make an effort to try to get a hold of you if things kind of crash with the technological gremlins that are out there that seem to be showing up sometimes. So
They definitely do, Jeff. And then the other thing is that if you log on to the meeting very early, some of the Zoom meeting folks have been letting people raise their hand and test out the speaking before, you know, so if you're in the meeting very, very early before they get started, you can actually, you know, try out and, you know, test talking to a live person to make sure everything's going well. So the folks that run those Zoom meetings are just really incredible. They're really nice folks.
Great, thanks, Autumn.
Thanks.
All right, so I'm going to open it up for questions one more time, and then I think we can actually wrap up. That was a very speedy training. So, and again, if you have questions also just leading up to the actual testimony, please reach out to Jeff and myself, and we are very happy to help you. So, and let us know too if you're testifying over Zoom or if you're planning to come to Helena, because it's good to have a head count, and also they do want to know if they're, you know, an estimated number of folks that will be there in person at the very least. So yeah, let us know, and we're here to help and support you. So, all right, well, with that, I think we can wrap it up unless there's any last minute questions. So thank you everyone for coming and taking the time. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you all, you know, giving testimony and in one of the many ways to do so. So,
and geography is going to be an important part of House Bill 2. If they hear from all across the state, the four corners of the state, north and south, east and west, I mean, that's important because they see, wow, there's great broad support across the whole state of Montana for these programs.
yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point, Jeff. So, all right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see some of you on the Zoom on Tuesday if we don't talk to you before then. So, all right.
Thank you. Thank you.
See
Thanks,
ya.
everyone.